Pat Pastula, the Hall of Fame track coach, live in studio. And we've got the message thread up on Facebook, Timeout with Andy Brown on Facebook.com. If you have a question or comment for Coach Pastula, kindly drop us a line, and we'll try to embarrass Coach as best we can right here on live radio. We'll talk to Coach Pastula in just a moment. Later on, Rick Arsenal, Jason Hollebeck. We've got a new guy to introduce to you in a little bit as well, and we'll break down the world of sports coming up during the second half of the program on a Wednesday night. I want to welcome in Coach Pastula, who I've met a couple of times but don't know well. And Scott Phillips, Pat, has been insisting that this interview happen. And I kept kind of forgetting about it, and then I saw a little article in the paper a few weeks ago about it, and had to get in touch with you. So good that you were able to carve out the time to come in. How have you been?
Fine, and being newly retired, I have all kinds of time, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I mean, moonlighting in Florida a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I spent some time in Florida, so there is life after teaching. Yep, enjoyed that very much.
Gosh, I hope so. Gosh, I hope that's right. Coach Pastula, congratulations on your induction into the Hall of Fame. Can you tell everybody about sort of how you got involved with that, or how you found out that you would be inducted? And, what was your reaction when that came to pass?
Well, about a year ago, I knew that it was a possibility. I had a good friend that was very much involved in MITCA, which is the organization that admits people into the Hall of Fame. And he contacted me and asked me to sort of talk a little bit about my coaching career, and then it goes to a committee. And so sometime in late October, as I heard that I was going to be an inductee into the Hall of Fame. So.
And where is the Hall of Fame housed? And tell me a little bit about that organization.
Actually, part of the Hall of Fame is at Central Michigan University. There's a wing there. There's, of course, the Michigan Football Coaches Hall of Fame, I believe, is at Central Michigan. So there's a wing there for the track coaches as well.
And you're in it.
I'm in it.
That's not bad.
And it's something. This is that so you had to give a little acceptance speech. This is when you're inducted, and it's something. This is I share with a lot of other people.
Yeah.
It's not something
Right.
that you do on your own. When they sort of look at your coaching record, and a few other things. So your coaching record, as you well know, is that's not something that you do on your own.
Yeah, for sure. Pat Pastula with us, the Hall of Famer. We've kind of started with the ending, but I want to go back to the beginning.
Sure.
I assume that you're a track athlete yourself, and that helped to bring about your love for the sport?
I was a track athlete at Hillsdale High School and ran the mile. And quite honestly, this has had somewhat of a frustrating senior season, which looking back now, this has really set me up. This is for a coaching career. I think I had a good understanding of what it is for an athlete to sort of go through some of those tough times, and and I think that's what you have to do as a coach. I think you can't just be ready to work with the star athletes. You got to be ready to work with kids of all ability levels. And so even though I ran track and cross country at Hillsdale High School and had some success, this is also not having some success was a good foundation for a coaching career.
Let's bear in on that senior year a little bit. I mean, did you suffer an injury? Did you not improve to the degree that you expected? What specifically about it was frustrating for you?
Well, my senior year going into the cross-country season, I ran 1,000 miles in the summertime, sometimes 25 miles a day, and didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to have a great senior year, and since I didn't know what I was doing, I wound up injured for most of my senior years. So, and again, that led me to sort of exploring the proper way to coach an athlete, especially when it came to distance running, and so some of that failure, produced success later on.
So you don't have your kids now running 25 miles a day over the summer.
That's one of the things I'm real proud of at Hillsdale High School is that we did start off running maybe a few too many miles, and we've had state champions that have run 40, 45 miles a week. And when I tell other coaches that, they're amazed because a lot of your best high school runners on the guys' side are running 70, 80 miles a week. And when I tell them that the state champions that we've had haven't run a step over 45 miles in a week, they're kind of amazed. And so I went the opposite way. Instead of 1,000 miles in the summer, we're running 45 miles a week.
So in some respects, when it comes to training in the off season, as far as just the sheer volume of mileage, less can be more at the end of the day. Is that just a wear and tear thing? Do you do other things to supplement with the running and that kind of thing?
It's kind of a philosophy that's based on, first of all, it's just making sure that an athlete has someplace else to go after high school, that they're not burnt out on it. And so for your elite athletes, they can go to college and grow into be even better runners in college. And for the kids that aren't elite athletes, hopefully that running grows into a love of just physical fitness and something that they'll do for most of their lives then.
Well, all summer long you can see your kids running all over the city of Hillsdale, and a lot of times you're right there with them. Pat Pastula, the Hall of Famer from Hillsdale High School, he has retired from his track coaching career, but still is the cross-country coach at Hillsdale High School, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Okay, so you were an athlete at Hillsdale High School. How do you make the leap to coach?
Well, my high school cross-country coach my senior year, Bill Teft, needed an assistant, and so I was his assistant for 1 year, and it's something that I don't know if he was looking to get out of or just sort of stepped aside because he could see right away that I had such a passion for it. But I coached 1 year with Bill in track and in cross-country, and then the very next years as I was the head coach for cross-country.
Had you done any running at the college level then too after high school?
Not much. Just as I actually was a walk-on at Hillsdale College in basketball, and some of my coaching career, if you had asked me 40 years ago what I was going to do, I would have been a basketball coach, I thought. But I coached 3 sports, and something had to give after 3 seasons of doing that. So I gave up the one in the middle and stuck with cross-country and track. So, but I actually had a great passion for basketball growing up as a kid as well.
Well, you know, a lot of basketball athletes would probably cringe at the idea of cross-country. Are there any similarities at all as far as coaching an athlete? Are there some things that you could take regardless of what sport it was from maybe the psychology, the mental part of the game, regardless of the sport?
Well, I tell you what, is cross-country runners that are basketball players don't get tired during a game. I could never understand this is why a kid would have to come out after playing for 4 or 5 minutes in a high school game. That didn't make any sense to me. So, so some of that, and I had, Scotty was a high school classmate of mine that you mentioned earlier, and so I had a great group of guys to go through high school with. So we shared a lot of experiences, whether it was, basketball or cross country. We had a state championship football team back then. And the answer is yes, there are a lot of similarities. That sort of never quit attitude that you have and the importance of hard work. I think that runs across all sports.
Kind of a universal concept, that competitive work ethic that goes into all champions. You get into the coaching early in your teaching career there. When did you start? Did success come early in your coaching career? Did it take a few years? How did that come to pass?
It came real early. My very first year that I coached, and I take absolutely no credit for this whatsoever, our girls cross-country team finished second in the state meet. And that's after I goofed them up sufficiently so that they placed third in the regional. But quite frankly, they were so talented that even I couldn't stop them from running a great race in the state meet. And so I had success very early. And that kind of just fueled the fire for more rather than sort of resting on it. And I really enjoyed it and really enjoyed those girls. And so, like I said, it was very good from the very beginning.
Have you committed the statistics to memory, or is that something that you've got packed away somewhere?
Well,
with your Hall of Fame stuff.
Some of it, no, is that I had to fill out a form, and we talked about different championships and that kind of thing. So, some of it's there, but it really is true. Most coaches you'll hear is you think about different seasons, different groups of groups of kids, individual kids, and the relationships you had with those teams, and sometimes the adversity that they went through. It's just, those are the things that you kind of remember more than how many wins and losses or anything like that.
Pat Pastula with us, the wonderful Hall of Fame cross-country coach, still at Hillsdale High School, and former head girls track coach at Hillsdale High School. Let's talk about some of these kids who you coached over the years. One name that I thought about today when I was thinking about this interview was a kid that I worked at the college with named Shannon Dye.
Right.
And maybe just the entire Dye family.
Right.
Probably pretty decent athletes for you. Shannon, I know, had some degrees of success. As you look over the years, and I don't know how many names you want to mention because you're probably going to be afraid to leave people out, but who are some of the names that you thought about when you heard about your Hall of Fame induction?
Well, individually is probably Shannon would be certainly one of those people, because not only was she a talented runner, she was a good leader. She was a good role model. And you think about a lot of times as a coach, the kids that give back to the program sort of later on in their careers, even though they're high school kids, you're hoping that they'll take other kids under their wings, and as a coach you can sustain a program rather than just sort of having a good season. Shannon was like that. I mean, 2 years ago, she was down here for our Hillsdale Labor Day run, so we've kept in contact over the years. And Josh Perrin is another kid who's a 3-time state champion, and that's not the thing that stands out about Josh. Josh was one of the most enthusiastic people you could ever find. He brought an enthusiasm that was unparalleled. And Andy, I know you're an English teacher, so I looked up the etymology of the word enthusiasm, and it says the Spirit of God within you. And once I read that, I was like, that's Josh. He brought something special to practice every day, and whatever I had written up for the day, that was going to be the best workout ever. That's the attitude that he had, and that really carried over for several years. So those are just 2 kids off the top of my head, and there are hundreds. Literally hundreds. Yeah. There are hundreds. So I don't want to go down that path too far.
How many years?
34 years of coaching, 33 years of teaching, and enjoyed every minute of it.
Awesome. Talk about track. I'm interested in track a little bit. Bruce Caswell coached football and track at Pittsford, and had obviously in 1996 they won a state championship in football. Had incredible success in track, won some state titles there. And I once asked him, Coach, how do you compare your coaching football to track? I mean, football may, in many people's minds, may be a higher profile sport. He said, if I had to choose, it'd be track all the way.
Oh, really?
Track 100%. Yeah. And he talked a little bit about the nature of the sport of track in ways that I'd never really thought of it about. What is it about that sport, and you can include cross-country with it too? It's kind of an interesting situation because it is individual from the respect that, the kid is in a race by themselves perhaps.
Right.
But it's also a team concept, I would imagine, as well, right?
Very much so. It could start telling you stories about kids that were on track teams that had that camaraderie, who did things that they never thought they could possibly do, but because they were part of a team, they did it. I tell a story of a girl, her name was Raquel Binkley, and her nickname was Rocky, appropriately, who at one point in the meet, she had to do something that I would not have told her that she had to do, but she had to break 13 minutes in order to do really well in this race. She'd never broken 14 minutes in her life. She ran 12:48, was the hero of the meet, never ever, and she was a sophomore when she did it, never ever broke 14 minutes again, but because her teammates were all around the track urging her on. And that's why I say those are the kinds of experiences that sort of stand out as a coach over time. And so there's a spirit on a good track team. There's a spirit on a good track team the way there is a good spirit on any other team, football, baseball, anything. So,
what about I was thinking about the logistics of being a track coach, from the respect that there are so many different events. If you consider the field events, the sprints, the hurdles, the long distance races. Obviously, you were a distance runner.
Right.
do you have? I mean, have you had assistants to help out with that? Do you have to become a master of each of those events? How does that work?
Yeah, well, the number one rule for a head track coach, I always felt you had to do what your assistants couldn't do. So if an assistant came in, such as yourself, and you felt like you were very good working with the sprinters, then you would. On the other hand, if you felt you were good with the distance kids, I would turn that over. I've been very, very blessed with some great assistants. The assistant coach I have working with me in cross country now, Eric Pressler, and his wife Bonnie. Eric is a full-time firefighter for the city. And so for the price of one, we get two really good people. Eric's been with me for 20 years. And once we got hooked up, I felt like our program really, truly became a program because he was somebody that was willing to work with me side by side 365 days out of the year. So, but I've had a lot of good assistant coaches over time, too. So.
And if you needed to show a kid how to do the shot put, you could do that if you needed to, right?
No. One of the things that you learn at a coaching clinic is never demonstrate anything because
really?
Yes,
okay.
Because they're going to pick up every single flaw that you have, and it's better to talk them through it or show them a Mac Wilkins video. Show them of an elite athlete doing that, or even a very good high school athlete. So I stayed away from that early. I took that coaching advice to heart right away.
How much do you focus on diet?
Nutrition is important. I think that in order of importance, it's the training. We talk to kids all about the training all the time. And the two things that will undermine that training quicker than anything are a lack of sleep and nutrition. So it's part of a tripod is that you have to have as an athlete. So nutrition is extremely important for a track and cross-country athlete.
Not a lot of pop during season?
No. In fact, when we have our beginning of the year parent meeting, I say the number one thing that I'm asking every parent in here to make a commitment to is to eliminate the pop from their household because there's so many empty calories and negative things that are in there. If they can just do that one thing first as an athlete, is that they'll be quite a ways down the road nutritionally.
Did you have kids over the years who came out for the team and realized it was too tough and just walked away from it? And how do you handle a kid that is struggling with the rigor of the kind of training that's involved?
Yeah. I'm proud to say rarely. Rarely have kids walked away, and it gets back to that team aspect. As soon as you make them feel like they're part of a family, and I think good coaches have heard Dick Lowry when he was here and other coaches in other sports, they really emphasize that family thing. And I did that early on in my coaching careers, is it really was a second family for some kids, and for some kids it was unfortunately at times the only family that they had. And when you create that sense of belonging, that's worth more than anything, whether a kid can run fast or not.
How much was staying on top of your own education part of it? I mean, you mentioned going to a clinic. Did you always stick to a particular program? Did that program change over the years as you continued to learn? What about your growth as a coach?
Yeah, other coaches in those clinics, I mean, we're in the education field, and the quickest way to fall behind is not to stay educated and not to keep up. I mean, learning is truly a lifelong process, and Bill was instrumental in that. I mean, the very first year I coached with him, he took me to the Micah Track and Field Clinic, and I went to at least those two clinics every year, the cross country clinic and the track and field clinic, and learned a lot from a lot of good people, and stole a lot of good ideas from people over time. And if there's a coach out there listening, I would tell you is you've got to learn how to be a good thief. I mean, in an honest way, but you have to steal ideas and recognize that you don't have all the answers. And so, yeah, I always felt when I was done going to clinics, I was probably done being a coach.
I've told my friends this in the past, as a football coach, people have said to me, well, that's got to be the coolest thing ever, you're calling the plays and all that stuff. And calling the plays has nothing to do with coaching football.
Yeah. Okay.
It's exactly what you just talked about. The longer I've coached football, the more I've realized how little I know about football.
Right. Exactly.
And, when I go up against a really good coach, and there are some around,
sure,
and it's humbling more than anything. It's not an ego thing. After a while, you realize, for the benefit of your kids and for your program and your community, you want to give them everything.
That's exactly right.
And if you feel like you don't have it all,
yep,
you feel like you've got to learn it all.
Yep.
And I think that's part of what drives a coach.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right when it comes to the kids. You feel an obligation to be prepared, and I've made no bones about it with the kids. I do expect a good effort, and I do want to create an environment of excellence rather than mediocrity in any program I've ever been involved in. But that responsibility starts with me. I've got to be prepared to give them my very best, and my coaching idol is a guy that was at Alamosa State. He was an NCAA Division II coach like Hillsdale College, won 17 national championships, and this guy is 83 years old, and he is still presenting and going to clinics. So, doggone it, if he can do it at 83, I can certainly do it.
Well, how often are you presenting at these clinics? Certainly you've been asked.
Oh, yeah, over the years I've been honored to make some presentations, maybe a half dozen times, and that. I mean, you're just honored by it, and then at the same time, it says you feel an obligation to do exactly what you've been doing all these years, and that is stealing ideas and taking ideas from other coaches, and not just the things that went well, but also the mistakes that you've made and trying to prevent other coaches from making the same mistakes, because quite frankly, it's not about winning and losing. They're going back to a group of kids, 20, 30, 40 strong, and you want them to be in a position to give those kids the best. It's a fraternity that way.
Yep, it really is. That connection, that relationship you can develop with those kids at such a formative age is special.
Yeah.
And I know Penny Neer has just written the program, and she writes, congratulations to an awesome coach and mentor. Oh. Now, she's somebody, to have Penny Neer call you a mentor, that's pretty good.
I don't know. I've gotten to know Penny's over the years. I don't know how much of a mentor. I mean, I really admire her, as well. So that's very nice of her to say.
She made it all the way to the Olympics. I would imagine in your career you've had several athletes go on and at least make it to the college level and have some success.
Yeah. Shannon, that we mentioned before, just ran collegiately, very well. Josh Perrin was a MAC champion several times over. So we've had some successes in that regard, but and we've had a lot of kids compete at the college level. And as I mentioned before, being sort of a low mileage, high quality program, I feel real good about that, because that certainly was the intent, that kids that had any desire to continue their running would not walk out of the Hillsdale High School program sort of burn out on the idea.
So when do we start getting ready for the 2012 cross-country season? Oh,
that started the day after the state meet. That started the day after. It's 365 days out of the year, and again, it's not so much the competitive let's train to be awesome aspect. It's let's develop a lifestyle that we can take with us for years beyond high school. And I always tell the kids, there was a coach who was approached by an athlete one day. He says, "Coach, when should I run?" And the coach said, "Well, when do you eat?" And the athlete said, I eat every day. And the coach says, "Well, just very simply run every day that you eat." And that's kind of the approach we've taken.